Welcome to Private Equity Vox. I am Antoine. With 20 years of experience in fund management, I created PE Cube to provide a tailored digital services that matches the ambition of private equity professionals. For the occasion of IPEM Paris 2024, we created, in partnership with IPEM, a special series, IPEM PE Hub. In this episode, we explore the central theme of IPEM, forging confidence, by asking our guests the vision of the private equity industry in 2050. Join us to dive in those 3 inspiring days in Paris, gathering the private equity community, discover the perspectives of our guests, and let's cross our opinions of our vibrant industry. Antoine Colson, CEO and Managing Partner of IPEM. What will private equity look like in 2050?
That's a tough one. First thing I say, I hope and I'm sure it will gather again at future IPEM events and that IPEM will still bring a lot of value to this industry. There are many discussions here and throughout the year of the future of our industry. I think it's still a relatively new industry, actually. We only started IPEM in 2016 and the industry is perhaps 40 years old maximum, so very hard to predict the future. We clearly see the growth of massive asset managers like the Blackstones, the Apollos and KKR of this world, that are gathering more and more of the capital raised in the market. And at the same time, we see highly specialized firms, sector-centric, with a strong expertise in some geographies and types of transactions that evolve alongside that. So I would imagine a future that's a blend of very large institutions and a vast universe of niche specialists. Probably or perhaps even working together. And that's probably the missing part right now in the environment. These large platforms may not be directly connected to the small players. I see also an industry that's still close to its DNA, but innovating more digitalized, and exploring new spaces. Private capital has been investing in growth companies, but there are many other areas to explore. Look, tomorrow actually, we have a session with an astronaut on stage talking about the investment perspectives we have in space. Who would have thought about it a few years ago?
Jean-Philippe Richaud, CIO and co-founder of Swen Capital Partners. What will private equity look like in 2050?
Probably in 2015, private equity funds expect to play a key role in the market. They would have probably to reinforce their impact measurement organization. And for me, in 2050, all private market players will have to be ESG, not only ESG compliant, but impact-driven organizations. And it does not only mean doing philanthropic things. It just means that players will have to dedicate their way of investing and accompanying their affiliates through a roadmap where environment and social issues are taken into account.
Rémi Matuchansky, partner at Esling Capital. What will private equity look like in 2050? We're dealing with forging confidence, which is the main question of this IPEM Paris 2024.
It will be a bigger market. It will be more professionalized than today, even if the progress made in the last 5 years is huge. It will be more mature, and it will have new segments with it. So I think it's gonna be a real way of making business and of making politics on companies. The only segment which is not influenced by private equity today is the big companies listed, for example, the GAFAM, etc., etc. The next frontier for private equity is maybe to be able to have an influence on these very big companies. And the last thing is maybe that the venture capital industry can be really different than today. That is to say that the private equity industry could really be a source of new initiatives. There are some initiatives today with what we call in French tremplin, but it is still at a starting point. So in 2050, I guess it will be more professionalized.
Dorothée Chatin, partner at 21 Invest. What will private equity look like in 2050?
Yes, I think that we will have more and more funds with multi-countries. I think that we need to have diversified portfolios, companies, and so having pan-European funds, for example, or having a specialty in terms of geographies. And these funds must have more and more specializations in terms of sectors. That is why we focus a lot in tech and healthcare, for example.
Julien Godard, senior partner at Elevation Capital. What will private equity look like in 2050?
Private equity is the third way to finance companies. Companies used to be financed by banks and then by markets. Now they are financed by private equity. Private equity is, as some big actors said, it's a new normal. You have more capital raised by private equity or injected in companies by private equity since almost 10 years. And private equity is roughly represent 13 trillions over the world, and it will continue to increase. Compared to private markets, for example, private market in the US is 50 trillions. So it's already big, and it will continue to grow, slower than in the past, but it will continue to grow.
Boris Bakesh, partner at C4 Venture. What will private equity look like in 2050?
I think in the same analogy as the financial public markets, I think it will become very accessible to many investors. I think typically in 2050, I wouldn't be surprised that our kids from the youngest age are exposed to private equity. So I think that would be like something which would be very normal. Whereas today you start to see it as people become more, financially educated, and people are at the younger age exposed to public markets. Tomorrow they should be exposed to private markets as well.
Stéphanie Cital, one right time. What will private equity look like in 2050?
Well, I think that in 2050 it will be like it is today, because at the end of the day, private equity has not changed since the beginning of this century or the previous century. What do? You choose relevant company with performing teams, founders, that can become tomorrow Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, delivering you the best return. But at the end of the day, that it be the first Ford, investors or the one who have invested at Facebook. You have invested in a company that is operating in a market that is going to be disrupted, with a team that is going to outperform the market. So I guess that at the end of the day, the private equity will remain the same. I mean, having the same fundamentals. What will change is the way you operate, using much more, of course, AI, tech, being more automatized in the way you operate. But at the end of the day, the essence of the job will be the same.
Thierry Gignon, Managing Partner at Merieux Equity Partners. What will private equity look like in 2050?
I think several key factors are likely to shape the industry. The first one, sustainability and ESG focus. Private equity shall play a significant role in the global transition towards sustainability. The estimated capital required to achieve net zero for 2050 range from $200 to $300 trillion. Therefore, private equity firms will be crucial in financing renewable energy projects and other sustainable initiatives. For example, for us, I did mention we remain a pretty small GP, 1.5 billion under management and 25 employees. We already have a dedicated sustainable manager, both for our GP but also our portfolio companies, and we are setting up impact KPIs for our fund and also biodiversity. We want really to be at the forefront of this critical transition. So that would be, for me, the first key factor. Second one is the integration, of course, of artificial intelligence and big data. This will be transforming for the private equity by enhancing investment, evaluation and portfolio management. It has already started, of course, but their role is expected to expand further in 2050. And finally, I would mention the regulatory environment. Increased regulatory scrutiny is expected, especially in sectors such as healthcare, for example, and technology, where compliance is critical. And, being a healthcare dedicated GP already put us in this area of compliance. So overall, I think private equity in 2050 will likely be characterized by its pivotal role in driving sustainability, leveraging technology advancement, and ensuring a rigorous compliance.
Jean-Philippe Bois, partner at Rich Capital. What will private equity look like in 2050?
It's really likely that by 2050 private equity will likely morph into a global network of decentralized capital pools. Meaning that the more it goes, the more we operate through AI. Very likely that we operate through tokenization of assets. So that's going to become like a frictionless market, probably. I don't know if it's like by 2050 or 2040, but yes, we'll again evolve towards a more global network of decentralized pools of capitals with many implications. So private equity would probably go through a more holistic approach. How can I give you like precision where investments are judged not by just financial returns, but also by their contribution to solving existential issues. If you look at the P or the private market penetration right now in the balance sheet of pension fund and insurance, it's very small, especially here in Europe. When you are dealing with groups here of, telling us that they are moving to 4 or 5% of P exposure. You cross the Atlantic, and there you would deal with pools of capital saying we are already at 40%. So it's not only in the balance sheet, but it's everywhere in the society. So it feels that again it's going to be much more decentralized, more everywhere. Let's say so. It's a bit of. Not disturbing, but a bit shaky statement, but it feels like in 2050 it's going to be like this. My bet.
Charles Soula, country head France, Neuberger. What will private equity look like in 2050?
I think 2050 it's in a long time though. I think maybe my parents will be invested in private equity. they're going to be very old, though, in 2050. Maybe my son, let's say. I think there's going to be strategies that we don't even know yet. Hopefully, it's going to be easier, to access private equity, especially when you are, an entrepreneur or even an executive in an industry company. That should be easier to access great companies, unlisted companies. And maybe clearly there's going to be something with, the way you can subscribe to a private equity fund. I think more online stuff, AI maybe, and hopefully PMs are still going to be out there trying to find the right deals. And I hope it's not going to be just passive.
Marc Lasserre, founder of SO Capital Advice. What will private equity look like in 2050?
Well, it's a good question, but I think we should have further expansion. Over the past 2 to 3 years, we have seen that more and more individuals, retail could be considered. I think that we are just at the emergence of new entrants into the asset class. It has been reserved today to a wealthy individual or institutional investor. But I think that with the platform that enable to have access to private companies, we could have a larger amount of deals financed by private equity fund. I think also, having been active on the secondary industry for the past 20 years, that the secondary industry is still providing a bit of liquidity to the market, but it's still we say maybe less than 5% of the volume of a private equity investment on a primary basis. So if I would say, and this is also important for retail investors, so if we develop further the secondary market, the duration that is needed today for private equity investment will reduce over time and will enable people to look at private equity assets on a short-term basis. Well, of course, there are economic cycle and so on and so forth, but if we provide liquidity to retail investors that are unable to invest over a long period of time, we should enable those people to enter more easily into the asset class.
Thank you for listening to Private Equity Vox. In this episode, we had a chance to discuss what will private equity look like in 2050. First point discussed was how cooperation could help us to join forces to better support our portfolio companies. Second being the increased and the requirement of increased fluidity of investment flows by all natures. And third point being reinforcing our responsibilities in terms of impact and accountability, taking off part of what is clearly seen as being a requirement. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on your networks, subscribe and leave us a kind comment. I'm Antoine and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Private Equity Vox for another tête-à-tête with a key player in private equity.